Okay.
This is our person.
Yeah. We're going to do this is built to scale. All right, so the basic idea is that when you walk into the venue, you arrive at a reception area where there's a reception desk which will function as a help desk as well as an information desk. And the idea is to have two screens up displaying basic information which you're going to need about the venue. So things like transit information,
times of certain panels, workshops, etc.
Yeah, so upcoming events in the next hour or 2 hours, whatever the case is. Nothing too intense, but just to ease you into the whole process.
This space is designed to be warm and friendly and welcoming, and not to confuse and intimidate people.
So there'll be lots of jelly beans and bowls.
And also what we're hoping is that we could have somebody who will take a photograph as that person comes in, and then digitally upload it to this screen over here, so that we have all the pictures of everybody built up as people register.
Not intimidating. Yeah?
Not at all. No, everyone's loaded up. Yeah. So okay. So then we've got the different size rooms and halls and what have you. So our idea for the large hall is to use it almost like the image that I came up, which isn't necessarily the best one, but the image I came up was almost like a train station. It's a central hub of activity for the summit. So we have these poster
exhibition spaces for research projects that have done research and want to show what they've done. They can actually exhibit themselves at these places for people to browse in this space over here.
And then towards the back of the venue over here, you have sort of meeting spaces, very informal, casual meeting spaces where people can come together and they can chill out, or they can have a chat about something that they want to, almost like a brief discussion area. There are rows of seating still in place over here, and then the idea is to have a large screen in the back of the venue over here where we'll display the same type of information you have in the reception area, but in addition to that, we like the idea of having almost like a split screen where you can see live feeds coming in from different rooms throughout the venue. So when you sit in this venue, you can get a pretty good idea of what's going on in all the other rooms and all the other venues. There'll also be information there about upcoming events, again, transit information, the clock, something like that. And another idea is to have a kind of Twitter feed or a drive-through feed where you can also pick up what other people in the venue are saying about things that they're coming across. So then sharing their experiences through something like Twitter, a little bit like, I suppose, what happened at South by Southwest last year. So you're getting an idea of what's going on right now in all the different venues. You're getting an idea of what people are experiencing in different venues. You're also getting a sense of what's coming up. And then, which bus you need to catch if you want to get back to wherever you want to get back to. So, we're still busy with the mingle, because there's a jelly bean over there which represents Ronaldo or any other person who's giving a speech. So the idea is that when the summit starts, we start off with a kind of panel discussion on a given topic. And the people who are attending that panel discussion then break away into the smaller venues and participate in a more informal panel discussion / unconference / round table thing. So it's not so much a case of having the speakers there and the audience here. It's a more collaborative process. It's a more all-inclusive process, and it's intended to facilitate more discussion on any given topic. And the idea is that you have more organized panel discussions, or kind of unconference / panel discussions, but then also leave a few rooms open for people to go and then set up their own discussions on a given topic. One way to deal with it is that they book a time slot and say, post a note on the wiki saying we're going to have a discussion at 2 o'clock on this topic, and get a group of people together and have their own kind of unconference discussion there. What else am I missing out on there? I think it's pretty much that stuff. The idea. Okay, so then when you move on to at the movie theater, you move on to the movie theater. The idea there is to play movies, sure, but don't just keep it as a don't just have a passive space where you sit back and you watch the movies. We want people to be able to come in and run their own multimedia presentations or run their own forms of multimedia and have a more interactive process. So there'll be chunks of time where we'll be showing movies of interest and then rotate those. So people don't have to worry that if they're participating in a session they're going to miss that show or they're going to miss that movie. But then in between those you're going to have, it's almost like a kind of open mic space where you can come along. Again, the reception desk is the focal point for these kinds of bookings. So you go to the reception desk and you book a time slot. You say, I'm going to do a presentation on whatever I'm going to do a presentation on, and you rock up at that time, you plug in and you run it. You have your discussion, you have your presentation, you have whatever the format's going to be, but obviously it's going to be, the content is going to be the type of content that's appropriate for that venue.
The middle room. The medium room?
Yeah. Okay.
That's here.
So then the medium room, where we put the medium room? There we put it. There. Okay. So the medium room is going to be dedicated to various tracks, education track and whatever other tracks we have in place. And this is probably going to be the most
continuous.
The most. I forgot the word, but
Focus.
as opposed to dynamic.
Static.
This is going to be the most static venue or the most static room, in the complex, because each track is going to have their own space, and it's going to be and the idea is to facilitate ongoing development of that track throughout the conference, whatever form it takes. So you may always have an education desk, for example, but that track is going to be developed, and this is going to be almost the focal point of that development throughout the conference. So this isn't going to change in terms of which people are which track, how the hall is going to be used, but each track will be developed over the course of the summit in that hall. What else do we have?
Our artists in residence are over here.
Okay, so artists in residence.
And in the garden.
I think a big part of the summit is obviously going to be showcasing local culture and local talent as well as artists in residence. And one idea is to have artists set up and have different people set up in the garden and in other areas around the venue. So as you walk into the venue, you're reminded of where we are. So we're reminded that we're in Sapporo and it is in a Japanese context. And in your travels around the venue, you're constantly reminded that you're in that kind of context. Because I think it's easy to forget where you are and get carried away with the type of content which may be of a more universal nature. So part of the imperative to showcase arts and culture and what have you is to keep that stuff, or to locate those people in such a way as that you're always reminded of it, and also to create different kind of environments. I mean, the outside area for those people living here are familiar with the Zoo Lake and the artists on weekends, what have you, where you can you walk around and see different exhibits and different artists in a fairly relaxed environment. And where they're permitting, that's the kind of thing that might create a nice space to relax and also get to experience some of these things. And it's also, I think, just having those kinds of things outside is a nice way to present it. Obviously, there might be some stuff which is more dependent on multimedia and that, which might be better and more appropriately located inside the venue, but that's the basic idea there. The big thing for us was to make sure that the large spaces like the main hall and that weren't vacant for periods of time, that they were constantly in use. So, you're going to find that we're going to have these exhibitions, we're going to have people chilling out, we're going to have keynote talks here, we're going to have, initial panel discussions, we're going to have, just keep the space in use as much as possible. And then the smaller venues will be used for breakaway panel discussions, for ad hoc sessions, whatever needs to be done. And you almost have this constant flow of people coming in and moving out, events happening and then breaking out. You might have, for example, a discussion on a broad topic, and that might break down to 3 separate discussions on, parts of that overall topic. So people really feel that they have an opportunity to really discuss not only the topics that they're interested in, but those parts of those topics that they really want to focus on.
Is there a way that we could get a lot of that down video and have some kind of venue where say, oh, I missed that talk, let me replay it.
Well, see, all
Or
we
have
have
it
here.
replayed in some other venue.
Well, so yeah,
That's our idea for streaming, because the idea that we try to come up with is like to make a conference that is space independent, that actually you can sit in a room and you can be able to watch everything that is going on according to like a translation channel that you switch, and then you follow the tracks that you're most interested at. And the other thing is like a creative use of streaming, so that everything that is being shot and presented like in real time in this screen is also recorded. And so if you miss anything, you can just sit down on a computer and watch it right away. So that's the idea.
And then also take all of that content, so take all the sessions and ideally record all the sessions, video and audio, and have this massive body of content which we can then publish as a podcast or make available for download over the course of the year that follows the summit. So you don't have this, this massive amount of activity around the summit and then nothing for a year, and then the next summit rolls around. So you've actually got this content from the summit that carries you through to the 2009 summit, and then if that works, then presumably that carries on. So you have this continuous flow of summit-related content, which will hopefully inspire more discussion and have more processes going, and just help build the community even more. Otherwise, you have these islands of activity, and then it's, well, the conference is done. Now what?
Yep. Time. Okay, we're going to do questions afterwards. Paul, Alison,
Thanks,
and
for me. And I just put this on the table.
Yeah. I'll be speaking most of the time, so maybe it's easier if I hold it.
Thanks.
So, actually, I think we built that really quickly at the end. Most of the time we were actually we had the advantage that on Fumi's laptop there's actually the layout of the actual conference venue. Oh. So we didn't spend so much time arranging stuff.
Unfair advantage.
I don't know, it's not so much about the layout, but I think we thought about two other things. We've thought about okay, what kind of people we want to accommodate with that conference and the layout of the conference. And the second thing is okay, what's kind of the lessons from the past summits we had that we want to have different. If we go first, maybe really quickly, what we thought we were going to do different than the prior in Dubrovnik, one thing which I think many people complained about was there were moments of focused central attention where you could do nothing else except go drink beer, and then the next time there were so many activities at the same time that you couldn't choose. And we always want to have we thought okay, it should be a setup where there's always choice, and maybe because it's always a little bit less choice, it's a better compromise than have it points, and maybe also have different stuff dedicated to different types of visitors, because as our movement grows and matures, there's of course two different people who have been in there for a long time, who have very, very different expectations towards the conference, because for them it's deepening, it's actually meeting the people they've already seen a couple of times. And there's the newbies who came in after Dubrovnik and who want to get the basics, and which is also certain overlap with the local public who comes in. So we have these two groups. We have actually a third group, people who are don't have HDAD, so attention deficit disorder. So they want to concentrate on a track for the entire conference. So we basically have the newbies, the commoners, who want to do 17 things at once and need to be maybe a bit protected in their choice, and the people who stick with the track for themselves. The other thing we also said, but that's maybe for later discussions, we want to have certain things. We want to have less white males speaking from Northern America and Northern Europe and things like that. So we want to have less keynotes. We don't want to have so many keynotes. We want to have actually stuff. The ideal, not necessarily conference goer, but we were asked to have the ideal guy is the ideal person to pop up at the conference is somebody who proposes a topic which we haven't heard about, and who will go wow, that was brilliant, why didn't we know that person from before? So the outsider, maybe even the hired outsider who was doing something else, and we asked them to give a provocation or something. And we've also, and that is on here, have thought a little bit about in terms of time and space, and this is not really, but basically, so this is the iCommons 101, which is basically the standard thing where the newbies, like the new people, like where there's like basically presentation mode, which is completely, as in terms of space, it's completely open. People can just walk in there. There's an open door. You don't need a badge. You don't need to pass any registration. It's just like there's a program outside, and you can just go in there and see that. But basically, all the conference people who are registered can also go in there. But it's basically open door to people who want to come. Then we have this middle thing, which is like the track with the like actually where there's planned workshops and like where it's in time slots, kind of like the classical thing. And there might be only 2 or 3 things at the same time. Probably maybe even 2 because that's less choice and it's better for people, but maybe 3, who knows, like that's going to be defined. And that would be for the first 2 days, and this is stuff like people, like which is going to be selected by a program. This is kind of curated. There's like actually a narrative in this 101. This is kind of like selected from all the propositions and then try to puzzle like you normally do a conference together. And it should have 2 days, and then the last day it should be like, there should be for 2 days. Last day the REM, I explained it, that is, and then the third thing are these tracks, like the education track last year, where it's basically a limited number of people who make their own program, who stick with it for the entire summit, because like they are basically mainly only interested in that. That's people like who work on education like the whole year, come to the summit, discuss interesting stuff, go back, implement that. There's talk on the mailing list about doing kind of like the same maybe for research, and the other, what was M again? Or for music in this case. So we have these, but this could be as many as people propose a track, and basically it's their own responsibility to say like, okay, yay, I have 10 people, I need a room for a track. You get a room for a track, it's basically maybe there's some other facilitating, but this is basically people who are stuck in this part, who don't really, during the day, don't really mingle because like they're really serious. Well, these people have attention deficit disorder and open their laptops at wrong times and like can't make choices between 2 panels at the same time, and then run out of half a panel. And then at the end, like it would be fair, like last time, like I think that the presentation by the education track was very impressive, but like nobody was really interested at that point because it was like kind of like for the entire audience before the finishing keynote. And maybe have that in the morning, have the tracks present if they want, and then have like really first thing, no other things on that morning, then have a concluding kind of like keynote session for all the 3 things, and there's an opening thing which is also for all the 3 things. And in terms of space, so this is completely open and welcoming. This is kind of like very social, tries to like make people really interact, and there's a couple of ideas which we explained there. And this is basically like back in the building where nobody comes and bothers these people, and they govern their own space, and it's like ideally it would be rooms with like leather chairs, armchairs, and a fireplace, and like this really like inspiring like thing where people can have deep conversations, right?
Or can just converse in a chat room.
And so this is also like this is kind of like this is like curated in a way. This is like puzzled together by some kind of program committee, and this is basically their own responsibility with certain structural help to organize. And then in terms of this thing, and now people have to help me, what was everything? So basically this is the free zone. This is the big room where the iCommons 101 were people. This is Larry. Larry's going to give his last free culture talk on the 31st, so we had to voodoo him, so he's going to give one other one at the summit. It looks like it's working. So this is free, and there's like a cinema space, and somehow it should be like, so this line basically, and this here is like what's freely accessible, like you can just walk in, basically. This here is whatever. And then this other thing is behind registration. So like if you're a participant, if you're registered, you can come to all the other things. And these are like basically the 2 venues for this middle part. And then there's a third thing which is empty at the moment, which is like for spillover. Like kind of like you also had that like these rooms, we need a room, we need to continue this, we need to, it's a bit far away, but anyway, well, these were like balloons too. Or?
It was reception desk, okay.
Okay, then and then with this whole, I thought that was the reception desk, but maybe we're not that good at it. Okay, then we have these to this group, like there's also these are the track rooms. You see, like they're all like the same color, like they know, like they are deep into it, like they don't want to be bothered. And then we have these 2 rooms, like there should be 2 rooms which are just to hang out, and one should be like allowing tech, that's this one with a laptop in there, and this one is one for hippies who don't like laptops and mobile phones, and this is the hippie with the long hair who's in that room.
Brilliant.
So like really have like the two kind of lounges. One.
That drunk by that time. That
No, stone. Not stone.
that time.
And then there's finally one last. Okay, then there's prison. Like the least likely. That's my. We came from REM. We came to Michael Stipe, and then he couldn't stand, so we decided he's drunk, and people who are drunk during the day get into prison. And then we have this church or cemetery or whatever room it is. Basically, there's two sets of eyes. I don't know if you can appreciate our art, but this is basically like an idea we thought it might be cool. Maybe have like this possibility where you can have like in a Catholic church in confession booth, like have one-on-one things where you can just like have like this limited space where you like just can force basically like I always wanted to talk to you, Fred, for the entire year.
Okay. And
you have some kind of like chip which you get one like so you have the right ones, and then you can force Fred to spend like 10 minutes with you in like a dark booth.
That would be I didn't know we were friends like that, but
talking.
Are there things that can happen in there that can get you in jail?
Yeah. That's why you need to jail.
I know I come to that kind of party.
Blind kissing.
But anyway, like
now that's cool.
But so these places, like basically these two, and this is the middle, this is the track, this is like the undesirable part, and this is the completely open thing. So really have these three different levels, which kind of like hopefully match with the kind of publics we hope to have there. And we've talked to a little of, so probably this space is also like always translated into Japanese, even if it's mainly English. And we were pretty sure that this space actually doesn't need that much translation, or maybe an exception or something. So they are also like by look and feel, this might feel completely different than this.
Nice.
Anything I forgot?
Yeah, anything that the other group members want to say or add?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe let's go through all of them and then just.
Great.
Cool.
Main things that we were thinking about was that we wanted people to always be with each other. We realized that most of the time, most of the discussion occurs in the corridors as people are passing. Last year, Dubrovnik, it happened a lot. Like a lot of the conversations occurred in that little cafe area right outside of Reveling. So we wanted to facilitate people coming together, sharing knowledge, collaborating on big ideas, and actually producing and creating items while they're there. So this is the large room, and instead of actually having keynotes and panels in there, we want it to be like a media production lab thing. So that's why it's kind of chaotic, but you know, there's what else in there? Video stuff, computers, musicians like jamming out, and this wall area right here, which if not everybody can see this if you can turn around. This would be kind of like a message. We want these like huge messaging boards where people can SMS and it like text and it appears, or people can do video blogging or email, or the second line people can post there as well. And basically, they can just say their opinions and voice whatever it is that they want to say, and it's a place for people to start debate. Or also we thought of this idea of like wanted signs and wanted posters, that if people are trying to collaborate on certain projects, that they can, you know, put up what it is that they're looking for and what it is that they need in order to finish the project. And then, let's see, we had, and also part of this, go outside into the garden area. And in the garden area, we wanted to, well, we have our, we also have a confession area, but it's one of those media, it's like a video recording, like they have in the reality TV shows, the confessional rooms. Yeah. So like the videos that you would film here would show up on the screen randomly.
So really not private at all. Like
yeah, no, if it's not on reality TV.
Yeah.
So, and then over here on the other side of our garden is a radio station, and that would be, could broadcast like talks, but then also the musicians that are coming together in the lab or outside or whatever, and to broadcast live. And then what else was in the garden? Okay. And then, so our smaller rooms, we used our smaller rooms to represent possibly different regions or different themes. I'm really confused about this part.
So So we were thinking that what's really important, and one of the things that we've always thought was missing from summits, is that sometimes some countries, they're either not as represented as other countries, or we just don't know what's going on with them. So we were thinking what would be cool would be in some of those 10 rooms to have, like, not like a trade fair as such, but kind of a place where people can talk about what's happening in a particular region. So there could be like an Africa room or a Southeast Asia room or something like that, as well as using those rooms for breakaway meetings. Because the whole point is to not have everything going on in the big hall, like to decentralize it all away from there. And then, the movie theater.
The movie theater was where we were going to do the keynotes, and
yeah, because we were thinking what something that kind of came out of the discussion right at the beginning was that to have a big keynote every day is actually just really tiring, and we thought what would be cool would be to have one keynote on the second day, so then you've got a nice build up towards a keynote, and then on the third day you've got the kind of trickle down effect of that keynote speech, and to make that a really like inspirational, long, dazzling address. So rather than having 5 people talking for a few minutes each, have one person or 2 people talking for half an hour or 20 minutes or even an hour each, and make it a kind of TED-esque, like amazing, blow your mind session.
And then another important thing was after that, being able to discuss, but we were talking about maybe having dinner after that so people could chat about it, but then at a later time having the speaker available in one of the smaller rooms to continue the discussion and something like that. So I feel like there's a lot of other stuff.
I think one of the things we said was we wanted there to be a kind of spin out from the central activities to the surrounding venues, so that you had a cluster effect of major focus that then might lead out into other clusters which were places of interest. So rather than having very clearly defined tracks as we had last year, have a more fluid process where there would be tracks but perhaps not all the way through, but also spaces for people to pick up their own ideas, to coalesce, to pull together ideas, and to start to try and map across the whole commons, so that instead of there being isolated pockets, there was connectivity between everyone and passages, as you'll see, that lead out from the various activities to that.
And then another reason, just going back to the main room, the inspiration behind it was we kind of divided learning in 2 ways. We looked at learning, one as the kind of learning that you do from the keynote, just being really inspired and just learning new ideas, but then also a learning as far as actually producing and creating stuff and learning like new skills that you can actually apply. So yeah, so that's what this is all about, is being able to actually come away with new skills and an actual product or something that you created while you were there. So.
And then speed geeking to learn about other people's products and projects.
Yes, and all about speaking with them. Listen.
One of the biggest things that came out is that we didn't really probably need the large hall as the lecture keynote hall, because max there's going to be like 400, 500 people there. So we kind of took the opportunity to turn the large hall into kind of like a general casual place where people can hang out and kind of communicate with each other and have kind of discrete sections within there, but make the medium hall or the lecture theater the kind of place where the keynotes happen, because I think we felt we could kind of fit everyone in there. This is kind of a more abstract.
I should just say a couple of things that we took as consideration before we started drafting the space. We were thinking rather about considerations that have resulted from previous years' experiences, and sort of two organic tendencies that seem to emerge or two problems one is that specific formats seem to function better, like CC Legal Day and, for instance, academic kind of formats. So formats which are not universal. You can't do several tracks with that format. You can do only one track or only one thing with that format. And then what is the way for those things to feed back into each other in more or less structured ways? So basically we have mapped out those kinds of relations or how those things could function, and then try to map it over the space. And then, yeah, the main consideration was how to create basically a big space of interactivity or communication, and that would be a lobby, and that would be primarily, one thing missing in Dubrovnik was clearly a bar, like where people could sit when they don't want to sit in any of sessions and just socialize.
And this is a beer tap there.
Yeah. So in a way we had, I would say, different levels of connecting or interacting that we wanted to set into space. One is completely informal, and it's epitomized by the bar. One is structured, and those are different formats, from speed geeking over lightning talks, media wall where people could present footage from the conference, artist presentation area where people could just present their art projects or talk about their projects. Then what did we have? Speakers corner, posters, and lab situations. So those are sort of less formal in the sense that they are, but they have certain structuring moment in them. And then there are formal, which are sessions, and which then need to have a structure of roundup and feedback. And those ways of focusing, because we think that organic tendencies for specific formats to emerge, is that we have basically a bunch of rooms, mid-sized rooms, which can be fitted to different purposes. Like that can be workshops, that can be just academics giving papers, or that could be a very interactive track, and a big hall. So that's the general map of things that we wanted to map out into space. And this is
I kind of drew a silly doodle here about how we could do a video wall, have kind of like 4 different types of media coming in that were tagged in like iSummit2008 and kind of displayed in real time, but it would also be curated over the year. So it would just be something to kind of like veg out on and watch. And then we could have like audio stuff that people could listen to. But it would be cool to kind of have like stuff running through the internet, like sent through the iCommons local network, and then just automatically displayed on a video wall. One of the other things we wanted to do was to have kind of like a intro video in both English and Japanese in the welcome spot, so that before you even like got into it, you could stand there for a minute or two and get acquainted and kind of be presented with what's like a reasonable introduction to the summit. So, Karen, did you want to add anything?
Nope, that's it.
Well, I would say that this kind of notion is very much centered around lobby and or whatever the entry area is, and diversification of things happening there, which are which stand for informal, structured forms of communication, whereas formal ways of communication, like panels and workshops, etc., which need also pre-planning and have certain hierarchy, should be then in mostly in mid-sized rooms. And I even wrote down a question: what about no big hall? What about the entire conference never ever meeting in one-to-many situation? What do we do? What do we have then? And one more idea was how to relate to world outside, and particularly local world outside, is maybe to experiment with television streaming, multicasting, and then to try to produce live program which could then
would be mobile and be able to go to different.
Certain format don't bear being recorded, like workshop, not going to work, and similar such things. so maybe someone editing a continuous stream of video material or in a way continuous TV program that could be, well, maybe streamed to a local television program that could be streamed online. That could be, if we could try to get someone to experiment, have people adding things to it and things like that. So yeah, that's basically it.
One thing I'll add is that I really like that idea of having a quiet space where people can like shut a door or something and have a conversation, even like just a telephone booth, have a Skype call or something, just to have some quiet in a conference can make a really big difference. So maybe have that as like a sectioned off part of the big hall, or maybe just in a room independently.
So we've basically allocated certain functions to certain rooms here, but I mean, so there is artist exhibition, there is restaurant, which I think should be somewhere where people would not like to hang out too long. This would be like a huge area that could get all the participants in, so they could access bar and just hang around. And then, I don't know, this is a room for organization and administration functions. These are like tracks and things. And
one thing was that we're conscious that these smaller rooms aren't all uniformly the same size. Not only because we couldn't put them together in the same style, but also, I mean, the concept is that these rooms are sort of flexible. They can be kind of molded to the right. I mean, according to the need. It's not, I mean, like some smaller tracks are bigger than other smaller tracks.
And someone mentioned earlier about this being the space where everybody got together, and I think the flow is really important, that people should come into this venue and should ideally be walking through this venue to some of the other things, so that when they come out of, if there is some kind of a big presentation, they come out of that, they're in this venue.
And it's not difficult to meet up with people.
They end up meeting up in the same place.
You don't have to go somewhere else to go hang out. So that's it.
Cool. Nice.
Heather's going to begin and explain how we did everything everybody else already did and more. So help us enter the room. You're here now.
Hello, my name is Rockstar Pinky, and I'm coming to the summit, and I'm so excited. And I'm coming through here. Oh my God! There's all these beautiful pictures, there's video here, and music, and there's video of people from all around the world. And someone's calling me on my phone.
People.
That's the music.
That's the music, yes. And people aren't riding elephants to work in Africa.
What?
And walking around here. So amazing. But what am I coming to? This is so weird. Weird, I mean. And then, all of a sudden, I come to this incredible, chaotic space.
So I'm no longer Pinky the Rockstar. She's now in our incredible chaotic space. So what we tried to do, which was very similar to everything there, and I think is a great evolution on what the summit can become, was figure out how do you create this container where the chaos and the social interaction is at the center instead of on the edges, and the kind of order and structure to really plan stuff is more the periphery. So we had this very, very chaotic free culture house lounge space, very much like a lot of these other social spaces in the middle, which Kevin's going to explain. And then we had these programmable spaces as the kind of, probably in the main hall around this lounge, that people could come and do unconference bar camp like events, and they would change all the time. People could come up with them. And then in the outer circle, there were kind of more pre-programmed spaces, labs, things like the legal track that would have a very specific kind of approach. So that was, the idea was more conceptual, that we need to build from the chaos and move to order, as opposed to have really, really structured stuff at the center of the space. And the only other thing I'll say, and then I'll let people explain the different components, is we talked also not just about tracks, but the idea of tribes. That a lot of those people, like in the education track last year, they want to be together, but they don't necessarily want to be disconnected. So they may be people who actually move in and out of these things and split up and come back together, as opposed to being a very, very closed kind of thing. So they're more like moving together as a group through a carnival than being off in one kind of corner. So do you want to explain the center of the chaos?
Yes. So if you think of, if you were in Dubrovnik last year, you can think of where the bathrooms / washrooms were. And that tends to be a place of where lots of people would gather because they naturally were flowing through there. It was also the entrance to the place. So we wanted to really make explicit that there is a place that you go. So when you don't know where to go, or when you're not really sure where to go next, you just naturally come here. So here, it might not be clear from some of the icons we use, but these are couches. So there's like really comfortable places to sit. This is a DJ, and these are turntables. And so there's music going on here. There's also snacks all the time, so you can always get food and coffee if you need that, or tea. And so there's kind of that is happening. And then these are like movable walls that we'll get into the detail of what's happening on there a little bit later, but interactive, both sometimes in electronic way, sometimes in a paper and pen kind of way. And then these programmable spaces they're sharing air. So this is the same room that these are all in. And the programmable spaces ahead of time, before the conference, we let people know what kind of resources are available there. So there could be chairs, there could be a projector, there could be outlets, things like that. So people can come with an idea of some like awesome thing that they're going to do. But we don't really plan out what is actually going to happen at what times until the conference starts and people arrive with their awesome projects in tow.
Okay. I'm particularly interested in the way that you can set up collaborations between delegates, people who might not otherwise get to know each other. So I thought it might be a good idea to also use the communal space as a space of exchange, where delegates are briefed beforehand. Should the summit, turn out to have a specific theme or a direction that we'd like to work towards, we can try and inform people beforehand what that is. And people who produce stuff will then be encouraged to bring 2 copies, like either on a flash disk or actual pictures or whatever the product may be, which then gets exchanged here. So everything gets put up on a wall or onto shelves or whatever the case may be, and you have 2. You have 2 of each thing that you bring. So you donate both, and then you get to choose from the other stuff that has already been deposited there. And then on your artifact, you should also include your address, your phone number, your email address, your area of interest. So it's basically just trying to see what you can get in exchange for what you are giving. And I think that creates quite an interesting platform for collaboration after the summit. It may not be directly related to what is happening in this space, but who knows? I think it could be quite exciting. Okay, who's next?
Okay, another idea that we had, we've got a video lab, DJ radio podcast lab, a lab with groovy technology, an education lab. So our idea was that ultimately, in the end, we're going to have delegates coming in and visiting these different labs. And in each of these labs, you've got like practitioners who focus on video or radio or any of the other 2. And in the end, what we'd like to do is probably like get some footage of what goes on in these labs, and the delegates interacting with the experts, if I could call them that, and wrap it up and have it sort of like a tutorial sort of video that you can actually give off to people who might not have come to the summit, or put it up on the internet, and package that up as like sort of a tutorial with all of these different specialities and stuff. And yeah,
you forgot the sushi lab.
Oh, the sushi lab.
Yeah. There's a lot we forgot actually. So there's a sushi lab where people learn how to make sushi and then they can eat it. But
they learn how to make really different types of sushi, like in the sushi remixing lab. Also, we didn't mention that when you arrive, I probably should have mentioned this, when you arrive, there's a living glossary kind of reception desk where people give you a glossary of the terms that are often used in this field in your language, and they tell you about what the glossary is and how it works, and tell you more about it. So that's the living glossary. And then we also didn't mention about the translation. So we had a translation babble box where each person's lanyard would say what languages they speak in different colors, and there would be buddies from different languages at the babble box who would help you to understand where the space is at, where everything is, and how to navigate it. And in terms of language, we would be very open in terms of scheduling the sessions and workshops in whatever language the facilitators wanted to, or the tribes, whatever language was good for each tribe. And we also didn't mention about the SMS alert system. So when you register, you put your mobile phone number into the system, and you then choose which sessions you really want to go to, and you'll get SMS alerts when those sessions are starting. And we didn't even explain about that.
We just have a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And then we had, it's called a, what is it called?
A theater?
A theatre, yes. Kevin, you're amazing. The vocab is incredible. Yeah. English is not my first language. So yeah, that's the movie theatre, and that's the great performance theatre that we'll see. And performance theatre is the great keynotes, but also people who want to play in their band and show people what they're doing. But basically it's a space where people can, that's scheduled and unscheduled time, and people can show movies and do all those kinds of cool things. What else have we forgotten?
Delegates.
Oh, the kinds of delegates, yeah. Sure. We put the kinds of delegates who are coming in and not coming in at the beginning. But we just brainstormed at the end the ideal delegate and the not ideal delegate. And it's people who want to teach and learn, not people who just want to come and talk, but also not people who want to just come and listen. You're coming with both. It's a multilingual delegate. It's Kevin, who happens to speak 4 languages, as you can see. There are people who are listeners, there are people who are collaborators, and they're not people who are whingers or monologuers. They're not allowed in the door. They're kept at immigration. Anything else? There you go. There's our chaos order model. Okay, guys. Thanks.